Welcome to our continuing series, Questions and Answers, from the works of Sri Aurobindo and the Mother. Today's subject is Psychology, Part 1, from Sri Aurobindo. Psychology ought to be rather than is the science of consciousness and of the motions of consciousness, as distinguished from the science of form and of the motions of form. We are dealing, therefore, in psychology with a more subtle, flexible, and versatile material than in the physical sciences. Its motions are more elusive, its processes harder to fix. But when once grasped and ascertained, its laws and activities are found to be quite as regular, manageable, and utilisable as the processes of physical nature. They give room to even more wonderful and momentous results. There is no difference of essential law in the physical and psychical, but a great difference of instrumentation and exact process. For the supreme existence moves on one fundamental principle and one set of principles in all its manifestations, but varies its organic arrangement and functioning of the principles to suit the material which it is using and the objective which it intends to reach. In both fields, observation and experiment are the only sound foundation of knowledge. But observation without experiment leads only to a limited and erroneous science, often to an empirical system of surface rules which do not deserve the name of science at all. It is this defect which has so long kept European psychology in the status of a pseudoscience, and even now, when real observation has begun and experimentation of an elementary kind is being attempted, the vices of the perishing socialism mar and hamper this infant knowledge. It has not rid itself of all its old scholastic swaddling clothes. Therefore, it still walks on all fours and cannot yet learn to stand up erect and walk. Psychology is the science of consciousness and its status and operations in nature, and, if that can be glimpsed or experienced, its status and operations beyond what we know as nature. It is not enough to observe and know the movements of our surface nature and the superficial nature of other living creatures, just as it is not enough for science to observe and know, as electricity, only the movements of lightning in the clouds, or for the astronomer to observe and know only those movements and properties of the stars that are visible to the unaided eye. Here, as there, a whole world of occult phenomena have to be laid bare and brought under control before the psychologist can hope to be master of his province. A complete psychology must be a complex of the science of mind, its operations, and its relations to life and body, with intuitive and experimental knowledge of the nature of mind and its relations to supermind and spirit. A complete psychology cannot be a pure natural science, but must be a compound of science and metaphysical knowledge. This necessity arises from the difference between natural or physical science and psychology. Psychology may begin as a natural science, but it deals already with supraphysical and must end in a metaphysical inquiry. A direct experiential and experimental psychology seems to be demanded if psychology is to be a science and not merely a mass of elementary and superficial generalizations with all the rest guesswork or uncertain conclusion or inference. We must see, feel, know directly what we observe. Our interpretations must be capable of being sure and indubitable. We must be able to work surely on a ground of sure knowledge. Modern psychologists have aimed at certitude in their knowledge, have found it or thought they have found it by mixing up psychology and physiology. Our physiological processes are supposed to be not only the instrumentation or an instrumentation of our consciousness, but the base or constituents of our psychological processes. But by this method, we can only arrive at an extended physiological, not a true psychological knowledge. We learn that there is a physical instrumentation by which physical things and their contacts work upon our consciousness, reach it through the nerves and the brain, and awake certain reactions in it, which may, however, vary with the brain and the consciousness contacted. We learn that the consciousness uses certain physiological processes as well as physical means to act upon outward things and conditions. We learn too that physical conditions have an action upon our state of consciousness and its functionings. But all this was to be expected, since we are a consciousness embodied and not disincarnate, acting through a body and with the body as a habitation and instrument, and not a pure consciousness acting in its own right.